a divine warning speech in the voice of a heavenly warrior. Children of the living God, hear the voice that thunders beyond the veil of the seen and unseen. A warning has been released into the earth, not to frighten you, but to awaken you. For the Almighty does not expose danger to shame you. He exposes danger to deliver you. There is a man, one who walks in the shadow of charm, one whose words drip with sweetness, but whose intentions coil like a serpent beneath still grass. You have felt the unease in your spirit, the tug in your chest, the whisper that says, "Something is not as it seems." Do not dismiss this. This is not your imagination. This is intervention. For the eye of heaven has searched him, and the scales of truth have weighed his heart. And though the world may applaud him, and your emotions may reach for him, the one who formed you sees deeper than your desire, further than your hope, clearer than your memories. The truth of this man, when it is revealed, will shake you. The name itself will strike like lightning through your understanding, not because of its familiarity, but because heaven has been trying to warn you long before your mind caught up. Hear this and hear it well. If God removes someone from you, it is because they were sent to destroy you. If God exposes someone to you, it is because they were never meant to walk with you. If God reveals the name, it is because the danger was greater than the attachment. You are not losing a blessing, you are escaping a trap. Lift your head, strengthen your heart, let the scales fall from your eyes. You were not created to be deceived. You were created to be protected. This is not a message of fear. It is a message of rescue. Walk away when God says walk. Release what God reveals. When the name is unveiled, do not return to what heaven has already judged. For you are guarded, shielded, and fiercely defended by the one who fights for your destiny with a fire that cannot be quenched. God warns before danger arrives, because his vision stretches far beyond the limits of human sight. Where you see the present moment, he sees the entire path, every shadow, every hidden intention, every disguised threat, every future heartbreak, and every trap set to steal your peace. Divine warnings are not interruptions. They are interventions sent long before disaster ever reaches your doorstep. They come as subtle nudges, uneasy feelings, sudden clarity, unexplained hesitation, or a voice within that refuses to be silenced. Many times these warnings feel inconvenient because they disrupt what you desire, what you've built up in your mind, or what you hoped a situation or person would become. Yet God's warnings are acts of deep mercy. They are his way of pulling back the curtain, so you do not walk blindly into a season that was never meant to hold you. When God warns you, it is never random. Every caution from heaven is intentional, precise, and protective. Sometimes he will let a person's true character slip through for just a moment. One comment, one action, one inconsistency, so your spirit can recognize what your heart has been trying to overlook. Other times he allows delays, obstacles, or confusion, not to frustrate you but to slow you down long enough for truth to surface. God is not slow. He is strategic. If He delays you, it is because the danger ahead is moving, reshaping, or revealing itself in ways you cannot yet see. What feels like stagnation to you is often divine positioning. God will not allow you to outrun His protection. He will interrupt your pace if it keeps you from colliding with something that aims to harm you. There are moments when His warnings appear as loss. A person suddenly leaves, a door abruptly closes, a connection stops making sense. To the emotional heart, this feels painful, but spiritually it is God clearing your path. He removes what you refuse to walk away from. He exposes what you keep giving the benefit of the doubt. He reveals what your imagination decorated with hope. His warnings are gifts, even when they come wrapped in disappointment. What you think you are losing is often what heaven is saving you from. Sometimes you won't understand the warning until much later. You may question it, resist it, or try to negotiate with it. But God knows the battles you never see, the ones fought in the unseen realm. The ones waged over your destiny, your peace, your stability, and your future. When God says, "Pay attention," it is because something beneath the surface is moving in a direction you cannot afford to follow. He knows the conversations happening behind your back. He knows the private intentions that contradict public behavior. He knows the words spoken when you are not in the room. He knows the spiritual atmosphere surrounding a person long before their actions ever catch up. God also warns through discomfort. That quiet tension in your spirit, the heaviness that settles for no logical reason, the sudden lack of peace, these are not to be ignored. Peace is one of God's clearest languages, and its absence is a message. When your spirit refuses to rest around someone, it is because something in them threatens something in you. You may not have proof, but your spirit has recognition. God does not let His children walk blindly into relationships or environments that will drain their strength, silence their voice, or derail their purpose. He places a divine alarm in your heart that rings before destruction appears. Even the people God sends into your life can function as warnings. A friend may point out what you refuse to see. A family member may express concern. A stranger's comment may echo something God has been whispering. Confirmation often arrives through repetition. When the same caution keeps finding you, it is because heaven is amplifying the message. God speaks through patterns. He speaks through timing. He speaks through alignment. If a warning repeats itself, it is because God is trying to guard you from something that grows more dangerous the longer you ignore it. There are times when God will shake your environment because gentle whispers were not enough. Confusion increases, tension rises, red flags multiply, inconsistencies become impossible to excuse. This is not punishment, this is protection. God will disrupt your comfort to preserve your destiny. He will allow a moment of pain to save you from years of suffering. His warnings are precise, but they are also persistent. God does not give up on saving you. Even when you drift toward something harmful, He sends reminders, redirects conversations, interrupts your thoughts, and pierces your conscience. He keeps pulling you back to safety, even if you didn't realize how far you wandered. Divine warnings are also invitations to trust. God does not owe explanations. He offers guidance. He knows what is coming even when you don't. When He says no, it is not rejection, it is rescue. When He says let go, it is not abandonment, it is alignment. When He says not this person, it is not punishment, it is protection. Human understanding is limited and often shaped by emotional hope, but God's warnings look beyond your feelings and aim directly at your future. He protects who you will become, not just who you are now. That is why He intervenes early, before your attachment strengthens, before your investment deepens, before your heart ties itself to something unworthy of you. Like a warrior who stands on the walls in the night, God sees the danger approaching long before it reaches the gate. He does not wait for destruction to knock. He signals, alerts, and calls you higher. He places a shield around you through awareness, through intuition, through spiritual discernment. His warnings, no matter how subtle, are evidence that you are watched over, valued, and defended. Ignoring divine warnings always leads to regret, but obeying them always leads to preservation. Even if the warning feels confusing in the moment, clarity will eventually come. You will look back and realize why the door had to close, why the person had to exit, why the situation had to shift, and why your spirit would not settle. You will see that the warning was not a loss. It was a miracle wearing camouflage. God warns because He loves deeply. He warns because your destiny matters. He warns because your heart is precious. He warns because not everything that approaches you is aligned with heaven's plan. And He warns because He sees what you cannot, and protects you long before danger ever arrives. Not everyone who appears gentle carries good intentions, and this is one of the most difficult truths for the human heart to accept. We are naturally drawn to kindness, to soft words, to warmth, to the appearance of sincerity. But the world is filled with individuals who have mastered the surface, who know how to wear gentleness like clothing, who present themselves as everything your spirit longs for, while hiding their real motives beneath layers of charm. Human beings often judge by tone, by friendliness, by familiarity, by how someone makes you feel in the moment. But appearances are thin, character runs deep. A gentle smile can hide a calculating mind. A comforting voice can mask manipulation. A patient demeanor can coexist with quiet deception. Not everyone who enters your life with kindness intends to leave goodness behind. There are people who study your vulnerabilities more than your strengths. They observe what earns your trust, what melts your guard, what softens your boundaries. They adjust themselves to match what you find safe. These are not always malicious monsters. Sometimes they are simply deeply broken individuals who use gentleness as a tool rather than a truth. They know that harshness will expose them too quickly, so they choose softness to slip into the places you protect least. When someone's gentleness feels too perfect, too calculated, too timely, it is wise to pause and discern. Real gentleness is consistent, natural, and unforced. False gentleness is strategic, temporary, and highly convenient. You will encounter people who know how to say all the right things, at all the right moments, with all the right timing. They can sense when you need reassurance, when you crave attention, when you fear abandonment. And they'll offer exactly what you long to hear, not out of genuine care, but because they understand the power of appearing safe. The danger lies not in their words but in their intentions. Intentions cannot be seen immediately, they reveal themselves only over time. A gentle person with dark intentions can be one of the most dangerous people to allow close to your heart, because they do not enter through force, they enter through trust. Many people have learned the language of kindness without ever embracing the heart behind it. They apologize quickly, yet their actions rarely change. They offer comfort, yet drain your peace. They appear patient, but only because they want something in return. They compliment you, but only when it benefits them. Their gentleness is an investment, not an expression. You might notice that when you stop giving them access, approval, or attention, their kindness evaporates. This is how you know that gentleness was an act, not a nature. Real goodness does not depend on what it receives. Real gentleness is not a costume, it is a character. It's easy to misunderstand certain people as gentle simply because they do not raise their voice, because they speak softly, or because they are calm on the surface. But quietness is not the same as goodness. A calm demeanor can hide chaos within. A soft voice can deliver harmful intentions. A quiet personality can be just as destructive as a loud one. Gentleness is not measured by volume, it is measured by integrity. A person can whisper manipulation just as effectively as another shouts anger. And often the whispering kind is more dangerous, because deception is harder to detect when it arrives in a warm, comforting tone. Your heart can be pulled toward someone who shows you what you've been missing: patience, affection, attention, gentleness. But longing can blur discernment. Sometimes what feels like emotional safety is simply emotional familiarity. You may mistake someone's gentleness for goodness because you crave connection, healing, or closure. But need is not the same as truth. People can sense when you are emotionally vulnerable and adapt themselves to your expectations. That's why discernment is necessary. Not suspicion, not paranoia. Discernment. The ability to see beyond the surface. The ability to feel when something is off even if the person behaves nicely. The ability to sense misalignment even when the interaction appears peaceful. You've likely met someone who seemed gentle at first, but slowly revealed sides of themselves that contradicted their initial impression. At the beginning they were attentive, later they became dismissive. Initially they were patient, later they were reactive. At first they were supportive, later they were critical. Their gentleness had an expiration date, one that ended as soon as they believed they had secured your trust. This is a pattern, not an accident. Some people behave kindly only until they achieve what they want. your vulnerability, your loyalty, your admiration, your availability, or your silence. Once they have access, the mask becomes unnecessary. You may also meet people who cannot sustain their own performance. They try to appear gentle, but fatigue eventually exposes their true nature. They become irritated at small boundaries. They grow defensive when you express your needs. They act offended when you ask for emotional clarity. This is because false gentleness requires effort, and effort cannot last forever. True gentleness does not break when it is tested. False gentleness shatters easily. One of the clearest signs that someone's gentleness is not genuine is inconsistency. Genuine kindness is steady. It does not depend on circumstances, moods, or benefits. A person with good intentions will remain gentle even when they are disappointed, stressed, or challenged. They may not be perfect, but their heart remains consistent. But someone who only appears gentle will shift drastically the moment they do not get what they want. Their kindness becomes coldness. Their patience becomes pressure. Their warmth becomes withdrawal. These sudden changes are not emotional complexity, they are revelations. It is also important to understand that some people who appear gentle are simply avoiding conflict. They do not speak up, not because they are kind, but because they fear confrontation. They agree with everything, not because they support you, but because they don't want to be exposed. They tolerate situations, not because they are peaceful, but because they are passive. Passivity can masquerade as gentleness, but it is not the same. Passivity allows problems to grow in silence. Passivity avoids responsibility. Passivity chooses comfort over honesty. A passive person may appear harmless, but their lack of truth can lead to deep emotional harm. At times you may look back and realize that the warning signs were present from the beginning. Maybe a certain comment felt strange. Maybe their compliments were overly crafted. Maybe their eye contact lasted just a little too long. Maybe their interest felt rushed or too intense. Maybe they mirrored you too perfectly. But because their surface behavior was gentle, you dismissed your intuition. Many people ignore their inner alarm because they do not want to believe that someone who appears good could cause harm. But intuition is a spiritual gift designed to protect you. It speaks when words deceive. Ultimately, the reality is simple. Gentleness without good intentions is manipulation. Real gentleness is spiritual, steady, and selfless. Fake gentleness is strategic, temporary, and self-serving. Not everyone who appears gentle comes to heal you. Some come to distract you, attach to you, or extract strength from you. This is why discernment matters. This is why caution is wisdom. This is why you must look beyond the surface. Because not everyone who smiles at you is safe, and not everyone who speaks softly deserves a place in your heart when heaven reveals a name. Take it seriously, because divine revelation is never casual. A name carries weight, identity, spiritual resonance, and prophetic meaning. It is not simply a label, It is a doorway into understanding the truth of a person, their nature, their intentions, and the role they are playing in your life. When God reveals a name, He is not merely pointing out a human being. He is unveiling something hidden, an agenda, a character, a spiritual influence, or a threat you could not see on your own. You may hear the name in prayer, sense it in your spirit, encounter it in a moment of clarity, or feel a sudden shift when thinking about the person. These moments are not random, they are signals from heaven, and ignoring such revelation is one of the greatest mistakes a person can make. A name can come to you suddenly, uninvited, without any logical reason. You may be going about your day, thinking of something unrelated, and a name crosses your mind with unusual weight. This is not coincidence. When a name comes with spiritual intensity, it is an alert from the unseen realm. God often reveals names to draw your attention to someone who carries influence over your life. Sometimes good, sometimes destructive. Discernment is not about suspicion, it is about clarity. When God reveals a name, He is directing your focus to what requires spiritual attention. There are moments when a name appears repeatedly, in multiple places, through multiple people. In conversations, dreams, or unexpected encounters. Repetition is the language of heaven when urgency is involved. God does not repeat something unless it is vital for you to understand. A name that keeps resurfacing is not haunting you, it is warning you or preparing you. If a name is revealed over and over again, it means heaven is speaking louder and louder, because you need to pay attention before something unfolds that you are not prepared for. Some names are revealed because they are tied to your destiny. Others are revealed because they are tied to your danger. You must learn to discern which category a name belongs to. Sometimes God reveals a name to strengthen your faith, to assure you that a person He is sending is significant to your purpose. Other times God reveals a name to expose someone who appears harmless but carries hidden harm. The revelation is not meant to frighten you, it is to make you aware. Awareness is protection. A name revealed in prayer is one of the clearest ways God speaks. When your spirit is quiet and connected to divine presence, names that rise uninvited are often spiritual messages. You may try to ignore them, dismiss them, or explain them away, but the inner stirring that follows is a signal. You feel it, not in your mind, but deep in your spirit. There is a weight, a pull, a knowing. That knowing is God saying, "Pay attention. This person matters in ways you do not yet see." Sometimes God reveals a name to protect you from emotional entanglement. Human hearts can become attached quickly, through kindness, attention, chemistry, or shared vulnerability. But God sees beyond the surface of your emotions. He sees who will break you, who will betray you, who will drain you, who will manipulate the access you give them. Before your heart fully invests, God may reveal their name to warn you to slow down, step back, or detach. When a name feels spiritually heavy, it is often because heaven is exposing that this person carries more weight in your story than they should. You might feel uncomfortable when the name comes to mind. Peace may disappear. Your spirit may tense. Your thoughts may become cloudy when thinking about them. These are not negative feelings. They are spiritual instincts. God speaks through peace as much as He speaks through discomfort. If a name comes with a sense of warning, do not ignore that feeling. It is better to pause and pray than to rush and regret. There are also times when God reveals a name because something connected to that person requires your spiritual attention. They may need prayer, may be going through a hidden battle, or may be connected to your journey in a way you do not yet understand. A revealed name is sometimes a call to intercede, but even in intercession, discernment is necessary. God does not reveal names without purpose. He may reveal a name shortly before something significant happens involving that person. This is heaven preparing you so that you are not caught off guard. You might receive the name before confrontation, betrayal, blessing, opportunity, or unexpected shift. God reveals names to prepare your spirit, align your decisions, and sharpen your awareness. He does not want you to walk blindly into seasons that require discernment. When heaven reveals a name, it often comes with clarity that overrides emotional confusion. You may have doubted your intuition, questioned your feelings, or excused their behavior. But one moment of spiritual revelation can break through months of uncertainty. God provides clarity not to hurt you, but to free you. When He highlights a name, He is exposing what you could not identify on your own. Ignoring a divinely revealed name can lead to unnecessary suffering. Many people look back and realize the name God revealed was the very person responsible for later heartbreak, disappointment, or spiritual drain. God warned them, but they dismissed the warning as overthinking or fear. There is a difference between paranoia and discernment. Paranoia is rooted in insecurity. Discernment is rooted in divine insight. When God reveals a name, it is discernment. Sometimes the name God reveals is one you trust deeply. This can be the hardest to accept. You may resist the revelation because it challenges your expectations, your memories, or your emotional investment. But God's revelation is not limited by your attachment. He reveals truth, not comfort. If a name you love appears in a warning, it means the danger is deeper than your affection can recognize. You must choose between protecting your emotions and protecting your destiny. God always calls you to the latter. There are moments when you ask God for clarity, and instead of giving long explanations, He gives a single name. That is the answer. That is the revelation. That is the direction. God does not waste words. When a name is revealed, the message is complete. This is the one to watch. This is the one connected to your next decision. This is the one influencing your heart, your mind, or your future. Taking a revealed name seriously does not mean fearing the person. It means positioning yourself wisely. It means seeking understanding. It means guarding your spirit, your peace, and your path. It means trusting that God sees what you do not, and He is alerting you before something unfolds. A revealed name is divine intelligence. It is spiritual strategy. It is heavenly intervention. When heaven speaks a name, it is not a whisper. It is a warning, a preparation, or a confirmation. And when God reveals a name, you must listen, because He never speaks without purpose. Separation can be divine protection, even when it feels painful, confusing, or unexpected. Human hearts often interpret separation as rejection, abandonment, or loss, but heaven sees it through a completely different lens. God removes what you cannot see clearly, protects you from what you do not understand yet, and redirects you from what would have drained or damaged you if it remained in your life. Separation is not always a sign that something went wrong. Sometimes it is the clearest evidence that God stepped in. When heaven intervenes by removing a person, an opportunity, or a connection, it is because something in that situation is misaligned with your destiny. What feels like the end to you is often the beginning of protection, healing, restoration, and clarity. Many times separation begins subtly. Communication slows down. The energy shifts. Your spirit becomes unsettled. Peace leaves. The bond feels different. You try to force it to work, but the more you push, the more it slips out of your hands. You think something is wrong with you, or assume you are losing something valuable. In reality, God is loosening your grip so you don't cling to what cannot go with you into the next season. He will remove the desire, the comfort, the illusion, or the attachment, so you can walk freely into the path He prepared. You may not understand the separation in the moment, but later you look back and realize that the very thing you were trying to hold on to was the thing God was trying to save you from. Sometimes God creates separation by revealing truth. Someone's real intentions come out. Their character slips. Their behavior changes. Their inconsistencies surface. You begin to see who they truly are instead of who you hoped they were. This revelation is not meant to hurt you. It is meant to release you. When God exposes truth, He is giving you permission to walk away without guilt, confusion, or regret. The truth you discover is the reason you are being separated in the first place. God knew what hid behind their sincerity. He knew what their future actions would be long before they ever manifested, so He allowed you to see just enough truth to help you detach from what you once wanted. There are seasons when separation feels sudden. People disappear, relationships end abruptly, opportunities shut down without warning. You feel blindsided, confused, and emotionally bruised. But sudden separation often means urgent protection. When God removes something quickly, it is because the danger ahead is greater than the pain of losing it. He will not wait for you to figure everything out. He acts abruptly to preserve what He planted in you. Swift separation is heaven's emergency exit, God pulling you out before your heart becomes entangled in something that would have taken years to recover from. Divine protection can also come through disappointment. What you prayed for didn't happen. What you planned fell apart. What you expected collapsed. You feel like God is withholding something from you, but He is actually withholding something that would have harmed you. Disappointment is sometimes the disguise of deliverance. What you called rejection was actually redirection. What you thought was a lost chance was God closing a door to keep you aligned with His will. The blessing you didn't receive was the danger you never encountered. When God separates you from someone, it is not always because they are evil or malicious. Sometimes it is simply because your paths are not meant to intertwine long term. Not everyone is assigned to every season of your life. Some people are temporary teachers, temporary companions, temporary mirrors, temporary bridges. Once their purpose is complete, God moves them out of the way so the next phase can unfold. Holding on to someone past their season creates spiritual tension, emotional stagnation, and mental confusion. You cannot embrace what God has ahead while clinging to what God has already removed. Your heart might fight separation because of comfort. Familiarity feels safe. Even unhealthy connections feel stable when you've grown used to them. God knows this, which is why He removes things even when you feel unprepared. He knows that if He allowed comfort to dictate your path, you would never discover what He planned for your life. Comfort cannot be your guide. Clarity must be. And clarity often comes through separation. There are times when separation happens because you prayed for growth. You asked God to elevate you, strengthen you, purify you, or move you into your calling. You did not realize that growth requires pruning. To move higher, God must remove people who will not survive the altitude. Some connections cannot withstand the spiritual pressure of your next level. God removes them not to punish you, but to prepare you. What looks like loss is actually preparation for expansion. Separation can also expose how much you depended on the wrong things. Sometimes God removes people because you trusted them more than you trusted Him. You leaned on their words, their attention, or their presence more than His guidance. When He takes them out of your life, it feels like emptiness, but that emptiness is the space He uses to rebuild your strength. Divine separation restores your identity, recenters your focus, and reawakens your spiritual discernment. Another reason separation is protective is because God sees spiritual battles you cannot. He sees influences, attachments, generational patterns, and hidden intentions long before you notice anything. Some people carry spiritual atmospheres that conflict with your calling. God separates you, not just from the person, but from the spiritual weight they carry. He removes you before their influence contaminates your peace, your discernment, or your purpose. In some cases, God separates you because you prayed for peace. You did not realize that peace would require distance from certain people. Peace is not possible in environments filled with manipulation, inconsistency, insecurity, or hidden motives. God answers your prayer for peace by removing the source of your inner conflict. The absence feels painful at first, but later you recognize it was necessary. Over time, separation reveals its true purpose. You begin to breathe again. You begin to think clearly. Your spirit rests. Your energy returns. Your vision sharpens. You rediscover yourself. You realize that the weight you carried wasn't yours. You see how much strength the connection drained from you. Separation becomes clarity, and clarity becomes gratitude. What once felt like loss transforms into relief. The blessing of separation becomes undeniable. You understand that God did not take something from you, He took something harmful away from you. He saved you quietly, strategically, and mercifully. He protected your heart, your future, your calling, and your spirit, even when you didn't know you needed protection. Separation is not abandonment. It is not rejection. It is not punishment. It is divine intervention. When God separates you, He is saving you from heartbreak, from deception, from distraction, from detour, from the wrong person, from the wrong path, from the wrong season. Divine separation is painful only until revelation arrives. After that, it becomes one of the greatest gifts you ever received. Obedience to God's warning breaks hidden traps, because divine guidance is not merely advice. It is spiritual strategy designed to dismantle dangers long before they materialize in your life. God sees what you cannot see. He hears conversations you are never present for, perceives motives hidden beneath smiles, and understands paths long before you ever step on them. When He warns you, speaks to your spirit, disturbs your peace, blocks a connection, or closes a door, it is because something ahead is not meant for you. But the key to escaping those unseen dangers is obedience. Warnings without obedience still lead to harm. Warnings with obedience lead to freedom, clarity, and protection. Obedience is not always easy because warnings often come at inconvenient times. They come when you want something. They come when you are emotionally invested. They come when you are hopeful about a situation or attached to a person. God will speak directly to your spirit, even when your heart wants to go another direction. And that is the moment where obedience is tested, when your desires disagree with God's direction. True obedience is revealed, not when the decision is easy, but when the choice requires sacrifice. Sometimes God warns you through subtle signals, a lack of peace, a strange heaviness, a feeling that something is off, or a sudden shift in a person's behavior. You might shrug it off or push through it, thinking it is just emotion. But spiritual warnings feel different. They linger. They repeat. They intensify. The more you try to silence them, the louder they grow. Obedience is choosing to trust that inner stirring rather than forcing your own way. Many people fall into traps because they ignore what their spirit felt long before anything went wrong. The trap did not appear suddenly. The warning appeared long before, but obedience was delayed or dismissed. There are times when God warns you through people. Someone you barely know, someone you trust deeply, or someone who speaks with unusual clarity. They may say something small, but it hits your spirit like truth. God often confirms His warnings through multiple voices, so that you cannot mistake His message. Obedience means listening, even when the message challenges your expectations. Many ignore warnings because they dislike the messenger, but God will use anyone to protect you. The question is not whether you like the person delivering the warning. The question is whether you are humble enough to receive it. God also warns through circumstances. Plans fall apart, attempts fail, communication breaks down. The more you try to move forward, the more resistance you encounter. This is not always spiritual warfare. Sometimes it is spiritual protection. God's no can look like frustration, delay, or denial. But obedience means stepping back and saying, "If this is not from you, I release it." Every time you obey God's no, a hidden trap collapses. Every time you force your way past God's warning, that same trap becomes deeper. Hidden traps are not always dramatic or dangerous looking. They can appear in the form of relationships that start sweetly but end painfully. Opportunities that seem promising but drain your peace. Friendships that begin with support but turn into manipulation, or decisions that look harmless but carry long-term consequences. The enemy does not trap you with what you fear. He traps you with what looks desirable. That is why obedience matters. God is not trying to take good things from you. He is trying to remove the counterfeit before you mistake it for His blessing. Obedience often leads to immediate emotional discomfort but long-term spiritual safety. You may feel lonely when God asks you to walk away, but the loneliness is temporary. The protection is permanent. You may feel confused when God says not this one, but the clarity will come later. What obedience does is eliminate the enemy's access to your life. Every trap the enemy sets requires your cooperation. When you obey God, you break that cooperation. You disconnect from people who could harm you. You close doors the enemy wanted to use. You avoid pain you never even knew was waiting ahead. Many hidden traps look like opportunities. A new job that feels exciting but steals your peace. A person who seems perfect but carries hidden intentions. A decision that appears logical but lacks spiritual approval. When you obey God's warning, you may feel like you are missing out, but what you are actually doing is stepping out of the way of something that would have deeply wounded you. Obedience creates protection that your natural mind cannot fully comprehend. Some of the greatest tragedies in people's lives happen because they ignored a small warning, a feeling, a dream, a red flag, a shift, a moment of hesitation, and some of the greatest blessings came because someone obeyed immediately, even without understanding why. Obedience is a seed, protection is the harvest. You may not see the danger you avoided, but heaven saw it clearly. Obedience also strengthens your spiritual discernment. Every time you follow God's leading, your ability to hear His voice becomes sharper. Every time you ignore His voice, your discernment becomes duller. A sharpened spirit can pick up danger before it arrives. A dulled spirit walks right into traps. Obedience is not just protection, it is training. It builds spiritual maturity and prepares you for greater assignments. There are moments when obedience feels like loss because you cannot see what God is shielding you from. You feel the emptiness of walking away, but you don't see the destruction you escaped. The trap you avoided might have taken months or years to recover from. It might have damaged your identity, delayed your destiny, or broken your spirit. God never asks you to obey to punish you. He asks you to obey to spare you. His warnings are rooted in love, and obedience is your agreement with His protection. Obedience sometimes means letting go before you have answers. It means trusting God's character more than your own understanding. It means believing that He sees further than you can, and that every warning has purpose. When you obey God's warning, you align yourself with His plan and remove yourself from the enemy's plan. You step into spiritual covering instead of spiritual danger. Hidden traps exist for one reason: to sabotage your future. God's warnings exist for another reason: to preserve it. Every time you obey, you partner with heaven. You allow God to fight for you. You allow Him to close doors you cannot see behind. You allow Him to rescue you from battles you never knew you were about to face. Obedience is not just doing what God says. It is trusting that His warnings are always for your good, even when they hurt, even when they confuse you, even when they disrupt your plans. Obedience breaks traps because it aligns your steps with divine protection. The enemy cannot destroy what God directs. He cannot trap what God shields. He cannot deceive a heart that listens. Obedience is your escape, it is your protection, it is your safeguard. When God warns, responding with obedience is what turns a potential disaster into a supernatural deliverance.